Welcome to Zero Percenters, where we're going to be watching what got rated 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. The first one we're going to be watching is called Dark Crimes. The main actor in this movie is Jim Carrey, and it's about a murder that takes place in Poland. The movie's as boring as it gets, so make sure to get your sodas ready, your popcorn ready, and your coffee ready. You will still fall asleep though, so let's get down to it! If you haven't heard about it, don't be surprised. It was on Redbox for a little bit, and then it kind of faded away. Dark Crimes is barely a movie. Even the synopsis on Wikipedia is only a sentence long. It's a postmodern movie, so there'll be instances where no means yes, and yes means no. You gotta be careful, this movie will make you mad. Not because it's so profound, rather because it's not. The movie is about a detective investigating a murder. The primary suspect wrote a novel that details that murder. The detective is played by Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey was the best.
I feel like the world and the universe experiencing a god. Who are you talking to? You know, Your Honor. Chick, chicky, boom, chick, chicky, boom. I really have to pee, Richard.
Then there's him in Dark Crimes.
I'll need you to sign a statement.
The movie starts off with the sounds of men and women moaning. The beginning of a movie is much like a bow on a present. It's not supposed to be what's inside. This intro just makes you want to turn the movie off. It's just too noisy to start a movie, which is weird because the rest of the movie is so fucking quiet, and shots where you're not able to tell what actor it is you're looking at. Oh, and before I forget, you really should get used to these faraway shots, where the camera dollies from one location to the next. In this movie you'll have no clue who anyone is, so let me help you out. There's a guy named Gregor, Tadek, and Kozlov. And big warning, do not watch this movie with really good headphones. You will hear this guy inhaling super loud. Also, why doesn't Jim Carrey speak? The best part of this movie is also the most lifeless part. Jim Carrey goes to a house and talks to his mother. In this scene, you would think he would be much more caring to her, especially considering how much he mourns her later on in the movie. I highly suggest drinking lots of coffee. You better get used to watching Jim Carrey watch TV in this movie, with no expression on his face. It took me a lot of thought to figure out that this lady is his wife, and that he's watching all this crazy shit in his house.
Well, watch out, guys. This guy is edgy as shit, straight out of the kitchen cabinet.
I think this scene may have worked if they just zoomed out, and we could see that Jim Carrey and his wife are in the same room. And then when she just lingers around waiting for an emotional response, it would make sense. Instead, we get this disconnection between the movie and not the characters. So because the dialogue is so useless in this movie, you'll have no clue what's going on. So let me explain. The videos that Jim Carrey is watching in this movie have to do with a place called The Cage. The Cage is a place where you can go and pretty much do whatever you want to a person, based on money, much like Hostel. The sex club Kozlov talks about in his book, Alicia,
Sex club in the basement. No?
is close to what the videos look like, so Jim Carrey thinks that they are one and the same. This movie is about as pseudo-intellectual as it gets.
Using a fisherman's knot known as the fly. A particularly painful knot that made the victim.
Also, the vulgarity of this movie is derived from the way that it plays the vulgarity, almost as commonplace, like the way he doesn't flinch at the macabre he's listening to in his car.
Behind the cage, leashed like dogs on all fours.
He makes no expression listening to the author describe rape, even in the kitchen table for breakfast. This cop stalks an author for no other reason than his obsession that he is guilty. Tadek doesn't speak to his daughter, and doesn't even show attraction to his own wife undressing, but then later goes on to have sex with a prostitute. What? I don't think the voice acting of Marton Csokas does him any due.
For what drives most humans, and most humans are unremarkably corrupt.
He sounds and acts so boring.
Correct.
You'll find yourself missing essential parts of his dialogue. Also, was that line so profound, you thought it'd be good time to add applause?
What truth means to you.
Reality is perception.
I just think it's so plain to add applause to nihilistic philosophy, but I suppose perception is reality bullshit. The real fall of the movie was its pretentiousness. Both literally in the case of writing,
Yes, no.
and visually. The cinematography and writing are trying to portray this ambiguously interesting movie. But I would rather see a documentary on Jacques Derrida
Tu es fou de critiquer telle ou telle personne.
that I don't understand than a movie devoid of meaning and thought. Like this dolly shot. A better and even ambiguous shot could have been from the perspective of Kozlov.
Correct.
So that way you quote unquote have your perspective from a morally ambiguous character. So you would see Jim Carrey's character close up and witness yourself being arrested and then following Jim Carrey. This is definitely not to say that the director's incompetent, since his movie Miss Violence is freaking amazing. This sort of beautiful directing only works with an intense and amazing script and acting. And the script for Dark Crimes is so dry. Just stop and look at this part.
I know.
This movie isn't ambiguous, it's boring.
Jesus, you're slow.
Too many close-ups.
You think?
Especially considering you decided to do a wide screen, so most of the shots are so close that the person who is talking has their head cropped off. It's almost too dark. Not morally dark, just brightness and saturation is way too low. The whole back and forth between these two characters is so dull. I still don't know what they're talking about. Okay, serious question. Is this a sequel to Liar Liar? Like if Fletcher Reed lost his way? The camera only does a few gestures in this movie. 80% of this movie is still far away shots in which a character slowly walks away, lifelessly towards the camera or towards a building. Close-ups and dolly shots. For a crime movie, it is missing an intensity of camera movement. It's a postmodern mess with ambiguity and no thought provocation. The dynamic between Jim Carrey and his wife is so dull that you won't be able to tell he's married to her.
Want somebody to love, don't you need somebody to love?
Is it true?
You know, this director is competent enough to put out gorgeous movies, but recording a vending machine is just too much. One of the most disgusting parts of this movie is this part. This character says, "I never feel safe."
I never feel safe.
And then he starts making out with her. I know what they were going for. It reminds me of Shion Sono's Love Exposure, right? An ambiguity of what is love, what is sex.
僕は罪を作るために盗撮を始めました。
Or something like Cold Fish, that questions the dynamic of dominance and how far sadomasochism can go. But this is not that, okay? I gotta be honest. This movie is great if you've ever wondered how Jim Carrey looks like when he's having sex. Have you? Have you ever wondered how Jim Carrey looks like if he's on top of you? Then this movie's the one for you. This movie is your movie. So Jim Carrey's character goes from morally ambiguous to a dark character.
In the street.
He has enough balls to hit Kozlov, a writer who hasn't done anything, but not enough to beat the shit out of a rapist. Seriously, this scene where Jim Carrey and the prostitute are talking about Kozlov is amazing. The camera movement is perfect. It kind of channels in on that tension between the two, the build up, the questioning.
Is that part of the show?
Pick it up! Do it.
But then fuck, back to this room. Why did they arrest this guy Gregor?
I've heard this story.
Like, I know why, but I don't know why. Check this out, Acting 101.
You should see this. Sir?
This line of good and evil.
People don't want justice. They want good and evil. Big, bright stories told with conviction. That's what we do.
I can see is what they were going for. the question of how much we search for a hero.
This is the story now.
I can see that statement resonating, but then it doesn't build on that statement. It doesn't deconstruct the hero principle. Instead, it constructs a villain. Whose house is this? This has got to be the longest, shortest movie I've ever seen. I can almost guarantee you'll have no idea why he's crying. At the end of the movie, the prostitute offers Jim Carrey a drink, and she finally confesses to killing that abusive, sadistic Sadowski.
I killed him.
This movie should have showed that scene she describes at the end.
Sometimes Sadowski wanted me to choke him. This time I didn't stop.
And as we zoom out, we see that Jim Carrey has been poisoned and killed. So I genuinely think this movie should have been about truth versus sacrifice. This line says it all.
You want to hear the truth?
It's all I have left.
See, the cinematography is amazing, but since the structure of the movie and writing is so rigid, the artistic fluidity and the camera contradicts the rigidity of the acting and script. And so I suppose if they were aiming for this contradiction, then bravo. If you were looking to create a movie with bad acting,
Truth cannot be separate from us.
editing,
You're fucked.
audio, writing,
Same victim, same location.
and devoid of any light and life, an amazing job.
No ghost. Tadek.
Next time we'll be watching The Disappointments Room by Wentworth Miller. Yep, Michael Scofield wrote a movie. So until next time, I'm Mexican Chuy. Hasta mañana.